The Samson story is super sick. The artwork was so good. Because we decided to use the picture, it's really made us to think about the story. Israel hadn't been following God as a nation, and so because of this, they had fallen into their enemy's hands, and Israel was actually being controlled by their enemy. But God promised that He was going to redeem Israel, that He was going to rescue them, and so through this, there was a baby born named Samson.
He was born into the Nazarite vow, and so he wasn't supposed to cut his hair or drink wine.
God wanted Samson to help him protect his people. And Samson needed something to help him with this. And that was supernatural strength. Here's God, He gave him super strength. But Samson, he started to turn his back on God's plan for him.
Even though he was strong in certain areas, he was also weak in other areas. And one of those areas he was weak was in women.
He liked lots of different girls, and that would land him in situations where his enemies would be trying to defeat him and trying to beat him, and then he would have to fight them. It's a really dramatic story where, starting with one relationship gone bad, he built up more and more and more enemies, and they all wanted to kill him, but they never could because he had so much power.
Eventually he meets this girl named Delilah.
Samson fell in love with this girl, but this girl was bad news. She wanted to have Samson killed. And so she asked him a bunch of times, Samson, Samson, what's the secret of your strength? And Samson came up with a few ideas which wasn't the truth.
Eventually he tells her how to do it. He just tells her, if you cut my hair, all my strength will disappear from you.
That night when he was asleep, his woman told the bad guys to come, and they cut his hair. And she shouted, Samson, Samson, the bad guys are here to get you. And he woke up and he couldn't escape because God's power had left him.
And they captured him, they plucked his eyes out, they put him in prison, and they started to make him work. Samson had never had to rely on human strength before in his life. But once the power of God left him, he was given one of the most hardest jobs in prison with absolutely no eyesight. And I imagine that it was such a terrible, terrible thing for him to experience. To experience what it actually feels like to not have God on your side any longer because you screwed up. So many years go by, and one day there's this gathering where all the leaders of the Israelites' enemies, the Philistines, are all together in one place in this one building. They're having a big party, they're getting drunk. So they bring Samson out and they chain him to some pillars.
Samson was there, on show, defeated, as a representation of that the true God is dead.
And so they're looking at Samson. He can't look back at them because he has no eyes. They plucked him out. And there's a pillar right here and a pillar right here.
And he prays out to God, and God gives him strength, and he basically pushes the pillars apart and brings the whole building down upon him and every Philistine in the building.
God's goals are accomplished through him in that one instance at the end of his life. Everything comes together and God's plans still succeed for him.
And he did all that with the strength that God gave him. It wasn't in his own strength, it was because God was with him.
Sometimes when we have something so precious in our lives and then we lose it, we realize how precious that thing was. Now Samson was blind, but I believe that for the first time in a long time, he started to see what was really important in his life. He began to see that actually God's plan for his life was way better than the life that he had chosen. That God's plan for his life was a full plan, was a good plan which fit him well. God's plan was not for him to be blind, was not for him to lose power, was not for him to be weak. God's plan was for him to be strong and to protect the people.